morning, today's Thursday, January 7th, 2020, and we are here for a work session. As always, we will start with the pledge. Ken, can you please take the lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
I have a few announcements today. First, Happy New Year to everyone. I want to extend my personal warm welcome to Councilman Ken Rothwell, who is joining us today on our first work session of 2021. Ken, we are all looking forward to working with you and collectively to move our town board forward, and welcome.
Thank you very much. It'd be an honor to work with all of you. Appreciate it.
Welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
Next, as I have repeatedly stated, urging all residents, please remain vigilant and adhere to the three W's, Wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance. Please follow all social distancing protocols and consider getting tested at one of our various locations throughout Riverhead. Details can be found at our town's website. We have a COVID folder with a tremendous amount of information, which we update quite often. All right, moving on to discussion items, our town attorney, Bob Kasakevich, will introduce our first item concerning the Riverhead Raceway. Bob, can you please come forward?
Supervisor, I just had a couple of things I wanted to say. I'll be brief.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Uh-huh.
I just want to mention the other night we had a very active agenda. We had a very busy meeting as it was the first meeting of the year, but somehow it happened, and I'm not looking to how it happened right now, but it happened that one of our families from our community who are still grieving for a revered community member were disrespected and lost in the shuffle. So I think at some point we can talk about how that occurred, but when something like that happens, if we're a unit, it falls upon all of us. So if it's okay with my council mates, I'd like to offer an apology to Charlene and the Smith family. I also want to mention that we had a lot of differing opinions at the meeting the other night. We had a lot of community involvement, which is always a good thing, and I'm appreciative of the people who kept their comments to positive things about different people and to discussion of the process. I'm appreciative to the people that kept it positive. Lastly, as community leaders, I think we would be remiss not to discuss what happened yesterday. It was a dark day in our nation's history. This is not the America that we know and love. It's okay to disagree, but violence is never the answer. It only serves to hurt and divide us more. We can all do better, and it starts right now in our community and with each and every one of us. We cannot allow our children to grow up in a nation where violence and hatred are a way of life. The hateful rhetoric must stop. So let's all take time to perhaps be quiet, consider staying off of social media for a while, and focus on the love of family and friends. The time is now for healing. Thank you.
Okay.
Catherine, I would just like to also mention and offer a sincere apology to the Smith family, to Charlene and to Alan's family. It was a hectic day and it did get lost in the shuffle, and we really truly apologize. I know we all feel very bad that happened, and anything we can do to make it better, we certainly would love to do that. Alan was a tremendous force in this town. I've known him for many, many years. I certainly missed the conversations. We'd run into each other in the supermarket, or when I was working in the police department, he would come in and do arraignments on the weekends, and we'd have lengthy conversations. Always informative, always great stories, and my sincere apologies to the family. That should never have happened. Thank you.
Yes, and I also wanted, I think that we need to have a discussion to see if we could possibly rectify it, but I do think it's a starting point to offer our sincere apology. I also wanted to mention that I wish Ken well. I hope that, he is successful, because when each of us are successful, it makes the whole team successful, and it's good for the town.
Thank you.
Yes, and great, and to the Smith family, I personally called them yesterday. And we know it was lost, as Tim said, lost in the shuffle. There was no intentional disrespect, and, I personally feel horrible. I spoke to Charlene yesterday. I apologized on my behalf, on behalf of the board. I explained to her that there was a huge amount of Zoom, people that, the timing was not good. I offered to hold a special work session with just the board to honor him, and we will be sending out from the supervisor's office a letter of apology. And while this cannot make up for, how they felt and what happened, Catherine said, it is a good starting point.
Thank you, I agree.
Okay, moving forward, Bob?
Sure. I'm gonna take off my mask. I think I got enough social distance here.
Good
Town
morning.
Attorney, Robert Kozakevich. I'm here, and I'm gonna be turning it over quickly to, Thomas Gatz, who's on the phone with us, to explain what he's looking to do for Riverhead Raceway 2021 racing schedule. Just as a backdrop, our code, we do have provision in it, Chapter 259, which addresses the raceway operations. It's been on the books for a while, and there's two particular paragraphs which I think are relevant, just as a prelude before Tom comes on. 259.3, which requires a schedule of races to be filed with us each year by Riverhead Raceway, so that we can keep track of and understand what they're doing as far as their race schedule is concerned. And then 259.4, which sets a limitation of when they can hold events, and it's basically from April to September, with a totality of 28 days of race events. I will note that last year this board did find it appropriate by resolution, I think it was 294, which they did on June 16th, I think was the date, where we did agree with Riverhead Raceway to, due to COVID and other issues, to extend their season, and the extension of the season was through November 30th of 2020. I think Tom wants to address the board as far as possibly doing something similar again this year. There is a race, again, I don't want to steal over thunder, I think it's at the Wall Stadium, the Turkey Run, which he's trying to work in conjunction with a little bit, and he'd like to try and do an event in November again that would allow for sort of a segue to that racing event, which was also canceled this year due to COVID. So with that said, I think what I'd like to do is turn it over to Tom on the phone, have him explain what his thoughts are, what he's looking to do, and see what the board's thoughts are as far as the 2021 race season with Riverhead Raceway.
Great.
If there's no further questions.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. Happy New Year, everybody on the board. Hoping that 2021 ends better than 2020, and greatly appreciate you getting me on the calendar so quickly here. As Bob had mentioned, you guys were gracious enough to allow us to basically extend the season in 2020 because we were not allowed to start on time due to COVID restrictions. 2020 was basically a struggle for us. We paid our bills, which is great, but at the end of the year there was really nothing left over. But I'm definitely happy that we were able to pay our bills and not have to come out of pocket to do so personally. As Bob had mentioned, historically we are allowed 28 race days throughout the year, starting in April through September, which would put the 21 season last dates of the year as September 25th and September 26th. We are under the impression that moving forward in 2021, we are going to be under similar constraints due to COVID, especially with the recent uptick. Obviously, we're hopeful that the vaccine starts to be distributed widely, and that most people either take it or continue to social distance, and we can kind of get a handle on this pandemic. With that being said, again, I think that at the beginning of the season, we're gonna be facing similar restrictions, which include not, allowing any, fans into the track. What we are allowed to do currently is we're allowed to have, members of race teams, staff that helps run the races, and obviously drivers, and all participants are allowed to participate in the pit area, so we can at least hold our events. So that, in and of itself, to run the business, financially makes it a struggle. So, as Bob had mentioned, we were looking to see if we could get one race in November to kind of hopefully offset, some of the struggle financially. Also, with the hope that by November, again, the vaccine would be distributed widely, and hopefully we'll have a better, handle on the pandemic. Going back to the historical constraints on the time that we're allowed to operate, we were looking to see if we could possibly not hold any events the first 2 weeks in April under the condition and agreement that we can forfeit 2 events at the beginning of April for the 1 event on the second Saturday, which would be Saturday, November 13th of November. As Bob had mentioned, this year the Turkey Derby, which has been a historic event at Wall Stadium in New Jersey, was canceled because of COVID. When we are making our schedule, it's a bit of a challenge because we have to look at all the other racetracks around in other states and see what, events we're going to be, competing against. And this November 13th date, there's really, most of the racing in the Northeast is already complete except for the Turkey Derby. So it kind of gives us a standalone date so that we can hold, potentially a really good, event where we would hopefully be able to get some decent participation and, help, make up some of the losses from COVID.
Mr. Gatz, if I hear you correctly, it's my understanding that simply you are requesting to exchange 2 dates in April for 1 day in November, correct?
That's correct. With the agreement that we're going to say, okay, our last regular season race would be the weekend of September 25th and 26th. So we would come to an agreement and say that we will not hold any events the first 2 weeks in April in exchange for allowing us to race on the 13th of November, with the 14th of November and the 20th of November being a rain date in the event that we had foul weather for the 14th. Yes, we would not hold any events on the first 2 weeks in April in exchange for that.
So from what I understand, I think in previous conversation with my deputy supervisor, I understand that the April dates are not as successful, but however the November date is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, November starting off the season is also not as successful. It tends to be a little bit colder. It's the beginning of the season. A lot of the touring, the teams that run in touring series, they're gearing up for those touring series, so they don't want to go out, the first couple weeks, of the year and ruin their equipment. So they kind of reserve their equipment, for later on in the year or for when their series are running. So with the November date, basically every other series is over, again, so allowing us to get better participation and hopefully to have a successful event and do well.
Mr. Gatz, I have one more question. Being that you are requesting a shift in dates, are you seeking to make this permanent?
The ultimate goal would be, it would be a great thing to have that as an annual, it would be a historical event. What the event is called, it's called the Islip 300. So it's a 300 lap modified race, and it basically honors Islip Speedway. They had an all-star 300 lap race. So there's a lot of nostalgia behind it. We get a lot of vintage cars that come out just to show. A lot of old timers come out just to, for the day to check it out. Ultimately, we would love to have this to be an annual event. Again, I'm concerned with, definitely getting it in for the 2021 season and, trying to make up some of the losses as a result of the COVID. But yes, if we were able to get it to be an annual event, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think that, that's something that the board can consider now, today. and you can still get your 2021 and make it a permanent, so you don't have to come back to us, next year, especially when it's,
That would be great.
a successful
great.
event, so, anyone in the board wanna make a comment?
I would just like to say that, Mr. Gatz, since you have taken over the racetrack, you've been very good neighbors and you've cooperated with the town. Some issues that were up and about years ago, we don't have anymore, and we appreciate your cooperation, and I certainly favor doing what you're requesting.
Including making it permanent?
Definitely
Yes.
appreciate that.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with Tim. I'm in favor of that too, especially if it can help the business be more sustainable and successful.
okay.
Just one observation. If we were to make it permanent, we would have to codify, because the code presently has clear limitations on when those events can take place. So that would be subject to a public hearing, and of course, we'd have to hear from the public. So any desire to do that would be subject to a public hearing, hearing what the public has to say, and that may change. So, depending upon the public comment. That said, I believe, Tom, it would be fair to say, have you been in communication with the neighbors, the Glenwood community in particular, as far as this is concerned, and have you heard anything negative or as far as what happened this past season, the 2020 season?
I did not have any negative feedback. My personal opinion is that we've been a good neighbor. I have had conversations with Brian Stark in the past. We only had one issue when back, I believe it was our first or second year as owners. We had a car show, and there were some people at the back of the property playing music loudly. I had requested that they turned it down. They did, and then of course when I walked away, they turned it back up. So I had, that was the only time that Brian wasn't too happy with us. Other than that, our events seem to be ending earlier than the prior owners. Typically we're ending our races around 9:30ish, 10. We're trying to have a smaller, compact show where people have a limited attention span, right? So you want to go to a show that's 2 to 3, 2.5 to 3 hours, 3.5 hours tops. So again, we're trying to get out of there and have racing done by 9:30. So I think that's been kind of helpful, with the relationship. Whereas the old owners, it seemed that the races would kind of drag on and get closer to 11 o'clock. And again, that's not to say that at times that depending on how the events go for the night, if there are wrecks, obviously the night is going to get extended. But we try to run a tight program. We bring a race director in from Maine, who is very, very strict, and he keeps a really, really tight timeline. So again, I think that that has been to the benefit of both us and the neighbor as well. That everything's quiet earlier, and I think that it's been a good relationship thus far.
So I just wanna say that I'm okay with the date change. I hope and pray that in November things are better for everybody. I am appreciative that you guys are ending earlier. I grew up with the sounds of the racetrack, and I don't know, it's a feeling of home actually. I'm accustomed to it along with everybody else, so I wish you well.
Sure.
Great, Bob,
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Does that require a code revision? Do we have to revise the code?
If we were to make it permanent, yes.
Okay.
If we were to just do this as a COVID-related issue for this year, it would be a resolution only. And again, it would be something we could do in a much quicker fashion by resolution. Obviously, the code change requires the publication, public hearing, and then an adoption. So that would result in a bigger turnaround
Scale.
period than just a simple resolution.
So why don't we create a resolution adopting the extension, and Catherine, your code revision?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you take the lead and have both motions in effect? at
And
the
Yeah,
same
the
time?
resolution will be simple. I mean, I think, because we already did it, so we have a template. We have
Okay.
already the track record from last year, so it would be essentially taking the resolution we did last year. And as per, Tom's comments earlier, we would spell out that the first 2 weeks in April are being forfeited. There will be no race events. And instead, there'll be the extension to allow for the one event in November with the 2 rain dates that he's talked about as rain dates only.
Correct, so we can put that in motion
That I
at
can
the
get,
same
that I can get
time.
on the agenda and into queue for the next meeting.
Right,
And I'm just, sorry, Yvette.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering whether we ought to consider, you know, moving it forward for now, seeing how it goes, and then seeing whether we wanna make it permanent. I don't know, what do you think, Bob?
Well, that was my thought. I kinda wanna see, cause, you know, again, Tom may say, well, this isn't really working, so we're making a code change and it's, the November date may not work for him.
Plus, we have to think about the neighbors, so, I mean,
Right.
it seems like maybe we move it along quickly, cause we're in agreement.
Well, I can
for
get the,
now, and
again, the
then we-
resolution is not gonna be a big lift. If the board's of the mindset to let that go forward, that could be put in queue and be ready for you guys next meeting. I could get that
And then
done.
if all goes well, we move forward with making it permanent for them.
Well, obviously, with the code revision, we'd have to look at things, we have to consider all the other implications. It may not be something we can get to this board in as quick a fashion, that's all.
Right, correct.
You know, that's my only concern,
Great.
all right?
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
good day.
much.
Great.
All right, thanks very much, I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Gatsby.
I have a
Great
good
day,
day.
Happy New Year.
Likewise.
Same to you.
Thank you,
Ne-
take care.
Next, our head planner, Jeff Murphy, is going to lead our discussion on extending outdoor dining permits. As you recall, during COVID, Riverhead Township actually, took the lead on, creating, outside dining in Suffolk County. And, we were able to, within a week, I think, Jeff, right, working with the fire marshal over the weekend, 20 phone calls, and we did get it going. However, it did expire on December 31st. And, there's been, requests to extend it. There's also been requests, and that's something that we can discuss at another time, but I just wanna plant the seed, is that those establishments that, meet the code, the fire marshal codes, we may, as a board, wanna consider them to make the outside dining, permanent for them. However, today, we're just gonna address the expiration, and then in the future, Jeff, if we can start working on that, making those, that comply with health, Department of Health violations, fire codes.
Right.
And then bring it to the board for possible adoption.
Yep. Thank you for the opportunity to address this issue today. I remember last March and April, a lot of town hall was closed to the public, and I want to commend the building department, planning department, and the fire marshal's office staff, because while other towns may have shut down completely in terms of their application review process, we continued. We took in applications, we reviewed the applications, we issued building permits, we did limited inspections, we did all that from home remotely. The clerical staff came in once a week to process the paperwork and the application fees, but when we came out of that, we weren't that far behind. So my staff is to be commended for the hard work and dedication. They volunteered it. They did not want to just sit at home twiddling their thumbs. They are very dedicated employees, and I'm very thankful to be working with them, and the town should be very thankful to have such dedicated employees. At the end of that, I know a number of industries got hit hard by the pandemic. Restaurants were hit especially hard last year and continue to be severely impacted by the COVID. As the supervisor mentioned, we prepared an outdoor dining permit application. It was a very quick, intense process. I remember it very well. I remember getting the 6 o'clock phone call on the way home from the supervisor on a Friday night saying we have to make more changes to it. And we did it because we wanted to get it out before the Memorial Day weekend last year, if you remember that. So we finished at the end of May, and last year we had 41 applications submitted to us.
Wow.
35 of those came in June of last year, so it was a very intense, fast June to turn around all these applications. And those were all free. You actually adopted a resolution back in June authorizing that we could process these applications for free. We took in the applications, reviewed them, did the inspection and issued permits for all those 35 within a 1-month period. So it was a very intense turnaround by the fire marshal's office, and they are to be commended for that. One of the things that we did, one of the big questions last year, and I think it's our response was appropriate, whether or not restaurants that have existing outdoor dining opportunities, should they apply for it? And my answer is they should, because they still have to comply with the COVID restrictions in terms of placement and distancing of the tables and employees, make sure the sanitation stations are available, that sort of thing. And once they found out how quickly the process was, how easy it was to submit the application, I got very few complaints about it, and I don't think the front office got any complaints. I don't think, hopefully, any of you got any complaints about it. I think we were very responsive to the restaurant industry. and we'd like to continue that going forward. The outdoor dining permit application, it's free. We have a town board resolution from last June. We'd like to continue that. Of the 40, right now, it's ended in December. We'd like to continue, and the question for you is whether or not you want to extend it for another 3 months or a 6-month period. That's the big question for you today. As the supervisor mentioned, there are more restrictive issues that we have to resolve. For example, we're now in the cold months, and we anticipated this was going to happen with the restaurants wanting to put tents over the outdoor seating and then put space heaters. Well, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but there are New York State Building Code and Fire Code requirements pertaining to tent applications and space heater requirements. To the best of our knowledge, none of those requirements have been waived. For a tent application on New York State Building Code and Fire Code, they're allowed to remain in place for 180 days, after which time they have to be removed. And if you want to apply for another 180 days for this year, they would have to apply for a new tent permit application and then resurrect the same tent they just took down. So it seems kind of odd to do that, given the current circumstance of the COVID. But that's unfortunately what the way the New York State Code applies today. I have a phone call into the Department of State to address the issue. Their office is closed, but they are listening to the voicemail messages, so I'm hoping to get a return phone call and get that some sort of direction from them to help out the restaurant industry. Right now, for the tent applications, we actually waived the tent permit fees for the tent applications for the COVID outdoor seating. Of the 25 tent applications for restaurants, we issued 25 tent applications last year from June through December. 20 of those for outdoor dining. Only 6 of them, surprisingly, applied for the free COVID portion of that. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your case may be, of those 20 outdoor dining tent applications, 7 of them are past 180 days or close to 100-day expiration date. So we have 13 remaining that are still in effect. So we really need to help out the restaurants with the tents. That's our next step to work on. But for right now, today, if we could just get an agreement on extending the outdoor tent permit applications for another either 3 months or 6 months, that would be phenomenal.
Jeff, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
There is a difference between a tent and actually the enclosures that they use, the plastic, right?
Well,
The
unfortunately,
clear-
the industry has kind of outpaced the state and the local governments. They have these, what are called igloos. They're
Right.
these plastic domes that you sit in.
Right.
There are no state requirements because the industry
Okay.
came out without the state having to address whether or not, what the material is, what the snow load is, what wind load, how do you secure them, or is there any ventilation in them? So we're not allowing them right now. Unfortunately, some restaurants have already installed them. We don't allow them because of these fire concerns, ventilation concerns.
Right.
If they put a space heater in them, then you've got some gas issues involved. So we're not
And
trying to be
thank you.
obstructionists, but there are safety concerns.
Jeff, I'm glad you brought that up because they seem like a concern to me. I don't know how you handle the ventilation
And we don't
having
know.
a space heater in there seems a little crazy, so.
Yeah, we're very concerned about that.
And, so basically today, we're gonna
Extend the,
decide 3 to 6 months. Personally, it's a lot of work for you, and I wanna commend your department, because I think one day I called you 7 times on a Sunday, as the applications are going back and forth, and I'm speaking to the state, and I think when we got the okay from the Department of Health, I think I was sent it to you, we're good to go, and again, thank your staff. I don't think that you should, I believe it's favorable for you not to just do 3 months and start this process again. So I'm gonna support 6 months, and can we hear from the board?
I agree that the work that goes into it and the way this pandemic's going, 6 months, in 6 months, we'll probably be going for another 6 months. I hope not, but 6 months would make the most sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head before with the Memorial Day deadline. That's when most of the businesses are gonna start ramping up for the season, and for them to have all their permits in place by that point would be really key.
Yeah, and not having to do it the day before, the week before a major event. They've got
Exactly.
more
Right.
important concerns than that.
And Ken, can we get your take on this?
Yeah, no, I think the restaurants have been struggling so bad through COVID-19, we gotta do everything we can to help them. I think for them to have their permits in place now, as opposed to having to revisit this right around, the beginning of the season, let's have them, more prepared and give them a head start. So I think we gotta help them, so I'm for the extension. I just have one question. You said the tent permits are for 180 days?
Yes.
So even with that, so that is right away 6 months as opposed to 3 months. So then it would just stay at
Yeah.
180 days, right?
Right now, they'd only apply to approximately 7 of the ones that have already, that have them, because they're about, either have expired or about to expire. They can apply for them now, so they can have the winter, and then they'd have to apply again and take them down again and put them back up again. It seems kind of silly to do that, but that's what the state law requires. That unfortunately is a state law requirement, not a building department requirement.
Can I ask a question and possibly consider it as you move forward and you recertify these restaurants for the 6 months extension? When you visit these locations, can you look at them with a different lens and look at them with consideration to making them permanent?
Yeah,
That way
yeah.
it's less work for you. You're
Mhm.
going to go there anyway. You have the application, you need, all the Department of Health, and you need all the certifications. So it might be a good idea to go in and say, okay, we're gonna do this, but there is a possibility, and that way you have all the paperwork, and that might lessen the workload in your department.
Yep, the only concern to that we have is that the outdoor dining, you're supposed to take out occupancy from inside the building to move it outside. We just don't want restaurants to keep the occupancy inside and they just
Sure.
add more to the outside. So
Okay.
that would be the big concern that we have.
So you have a little hurdle, I think we could
Yeah.
get through that.
Yeah, some of the restaurants, and I think you know which ones I'm referring to, have some parking issues throughout the year. And that's not a bad thing. It's unfortunately, it becomes an enforcement issue for the police department and, occupancy issues for the health department and fire marshal's office. But that's a sign that they're being successful, so.
Right.
So
Any-
I think this is a good idea, and I do continue to urge our community to keep frequenting our restaurants and small businesses. Certainly the restaurants are all doing takeout, I can attest to that.
Yep.
It's just such a struggle for them, and we want to keep them around, so I hope that everybody continues to keep that in mind and support them.
Yep, I think all of you know that I live in another jurisdiction, but last night I took take-home from Riverhead last night.
Was it good?
Oh, my family loved it. And I did not have to cook, so.
Cause we have the best restaurant.
Great, any other comments?
All right,
We're
great.
good on this? Thank you,
Right.
Jeff.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the next item, which is the Riverhead Law Enforcement Advisory Panel, also known as Riverhead LEAP. We are conducting a listening tour, and Chief Heggermill is here to discuss this item. Chief?
Good morning.
Morning.
Just
Good morning,
a
Chief.
brief update on our LEAP committee, Law Enforcement Advisory Panel. We've met bi-weekly since the beginning of October, so we've had quite a few meetings already. The LEAP committee the LEAP panel is formed into two parts, one being the committee itself, which are the core members, and then the other side being the advisors. So we've had meetings with both advisors and committees. As I said, the committee is regular, bi-weekly. The advisors, we meet not as frequently. The advisors' basically role is to reach out to their network or what they're associated with, like healthcare or mental health, Sister Margaret, they're all advisors. First Baptist Church, they're all advisors. So, as I said, we've reached out to them. We also have had a survey online. I hope everyone's taken it. It has come down at the end of the year, so it ended December 31st. We had it up for over a month, and I think we got a good response as far as number of people taking it. I know that the pattern book, I think, had about 1,200, and I think we had about 1,200 responses too, or more than that. It was also went out, the survey also went out to all committee members, and advisors, so they got it out to their respective groups. We're still collecting data, as the supervisor just said. We have a listening session, 2 listening sessions scheduled for next week, being January 12th at 11 a.m. daytime, and January 14th at 5 p.m., which will be the evening. So we also have a Spanish interpreter on those sessions, so if anyone wants to call in as far as being speaking Spanish, we'll have someone there to interpret it. You have to register for these sessions. There'll be a press release. It'll be up on our website. Go to the link, register. And as I say, they're only listening sessions, so there's really no back and forth as far as questions and answers. We'll take public comment for all people who register and call in on it. And that'll be a Zoom meeting.
Chief, if I may add, this is very similar to what the county's doing, correct?
Yes, so the county,
So
the supervisor and I were on the East End listening session for the county. The county had 8 listening sessions, 1 for each precinct, and then they included 1 for the East End. So as I said, we were both on that. It lasted for about an hour and a half, the one we were on, maybe 2 hours. Basically, to me, it was all groups that called in, or organizations. It basically wasn't residents calling in about anything on the East End. It was all these other organizations that had something to say. So I'm hoping that we get some input from our community. It's all about what the community wants. And it'll all be reviewed basically towards the end of the month. So this is the next phase we're in. This completes our data collection. After next week, we will then be reviewing data after that for the month of January. We're on a very tight time schedule. This all has to be completed by April 1st. So once we've reviewed the data, we'll discuss it with the committee, and then the committee will come up with the plan. We'll write the plan. That has to be then approved and accepted by the committee, and then it goes to public review at a public hearing, and then it has to be adopted by the town, and as I said, it all has to be done by April 1st on the governor's desk, so.
Chief, if I may add, once we collect the data, that is considered raw data, and it's open to any interpretation. So we have to interpretate that data, and that will be done in a formal report. When you do research, there is a process. So you have to introduce the topic, how you collected your data, put your data forward, and then you have to analyze the data and then give recommendations. So it will be a preliminary report that will be presented, and then thereafter, it has to be voted by the board, and that's the approach. And I just want to mention that I know myself and the committee members and the advisors for Riverhead Leap, it was a very, very well-rounded group of individuals. I think we have 13 different categories. Concerning the survey, the committee and the advisors, the core and the advisors were tasked with sending it out to their constituents and neighbors, or if it was clergy, to their groups. We also posted the survey on Facebook. We also boosted it 3 times. We had paper copies at the front desk, or one of the offices during 1 week, as people came in, gave copies. So we had paper copies available. We sent a copy in both Spanish and English to Sister Margaret. She sent out 400 flyers to her constituents, and she is awaiting, they're awaiting, I haven't seen any of the data yet, and I don't wanna see it until the end, until we get, roll up our sleeves and start analyzing. But she is distributing, and we need to get those copies from her. The survey was also available on the website. We sent out press releases. It was in every newspaper, and it was throughout social media. I think that we did a pretty good effort in sending out the message and getting respondents. And as a result of all that effort, we did, I'm sorry, Catherine, we did match the pattern book. We got 1,200 responses, sorry. I
But
think
we
we
had
got a
two
little more.
forums.
I haven't checked since last week, but I think we were at like 1198, so I.
That's about where we were.
Oh, okay, I don't know the full number, but I think that's a good.
I think it topped 1,200.
Oh, you did,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Okay.
think that it's great that we did have such good participation, and I'm glad that you guys boosted it so much. And I don't know if anyone mentioned this to you, but a couple people did mention to me that they wish there were more open-ended questions, where perhaps they could, relate something that had happened to them or a story. And someone else also mentioned to me something like the way the questions were, if you hadn't had an altercation or been pulled over or had something with the law, it was a little more challenging, because a lot of the questions were geared to that.
We got, just to add to what the supervisor said, we got a lot of good comments on our survey. A lot of townships or whatever, PDs, I guess you would call agencies, had surveys out there. We got positive comments just about our survey alone, how good it was. And I think that's a reflection, we tried to follow the format that was in the police reform manual from the governor. So we tried to keep it specific to that alone. We did at the end include a spot where people could email in comments, or that we would get in touch with them and ask them what their comments were. They just had to fill out, I think, the last 2 questions on that.
So did anyone mention to you, because several people actually mentioned that to me, that they were looking for more open-ended questions?
We've reached out, the ones that did fill out that section, we have reached out to them and got whatever their comments were.
Okay, well, maybe we can make sure people really know that.
Catherine, at the last question, asked if you wanted to be contacted by the LEAP program, and every person, was reached out to that said yes.
And I'm glad that you have more opportunities coming up for people.
Yes, I hope everyone who wants to speak,
Yes,
joins
can
us
we get
next
the
week
dates
on our listening
Can we
session.
get the dates on the listening tours?
Yep, it's on January 12th,
Mm-hmm,
which I think is Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, at 11 a.m., so it's the daytime one, and then on Thursday, January 14th, at 5 p.m., and that's the evening one.
and you must pre-register.
You must pre-register, so when that comes out, you'll see there'll be a link on that under those 2 dates. So just click on that link, you go right to a registration form.
And registration, we're actually following what the county does for their reform, and I think it ends at 12 o'clock the day prior to the, listening tour, correct?
Correct.
We also, as board members, would have to register as this?
Yes, everyone,
Okay.
it's just, and then we need to keep track of how many people and who attended, that becomes part of the report.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Even to get onto the county East End one, we had to register.
we have to
get-
register, yeah, everyone does.
Well,
So-
certainly,
Yeah,
I
that
think
one
we
I know
can
you do.
agree that the more information we're able to gather from within our community, the better job we can addressing,
Any
you know,
concerns?
addressing
Yep.
concerns
For sure.
that work for everybody.
And, I love all my fellow colleagues, but we did get even from our neighbors, our township, they commended on our survey. It was done on what's called a Likert scale, which, it rates, something negative to positive. And so people had a lot of options. You weren't stuck with yes or no, I like or don't like. And so you could say, well, maybe, I'm not too sure, or extremely well. And when you conduct a survey, you should give people the opportunity to have a level and a threshold to go up and down. So I think I was pretty, happy when we decided to use the Likert scale. But that's also, that Likert scale, Likert, Likert, is used in many surveys. It's used in PhDs. I personally used it when I did my PhD, and it gives you some good valid data. And again, the county's using it. We did not just pick up from the sky and say, oh, let's do this, we like this. And I think the survey was comprehensive. There were demographic data collected, which is important when you do a survey, that you gather demographics and then you go into the meat of the survey. And it also gave people the option to communicate with the surveyors, and that was the last question. So I think that Riverhead Township should be happy on how they conducted. And again, I've heard from two other townships nearby, they commended us publicly on our survey. And we're gonna move forward and we're gonna do a good job
And,
with it.
and that was from their committees, so it was people on their committees in other townships that then commented positively on our survey, so.
And it was too late, cause they already had their survey out. So they weren't able to, you can't just change the survey midway. So they were stuck with their survey, they couldn't copy, but we would've shared. So, thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Good,
You've done a tremendous amount of work on that, so it's very impressive, thank you very much.
in a short time frame.
Yes, and we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you, Chief. Our last item for today, I am going to ask our Deputy Town Attorney, Anne Marie Prudenti, to come forward to review matters surrounding a Stop Arm Camera program with Suffolk County, and I just wanna say a few words in this regard. This has been going on since November 2019. The New York State passed legislation authorizing a demonstration program providing for the installation of what is called a Stop Arm cameras on school buses, with the goal of to better enforce stop arm violations. And those violations are when people drive right past school buses and they have the stop sign and they disregard. And obviously, when the stop signs are put up by the driver of these school buses, people sometimes decide, I'm in a hurry, I can't wait, I don't see any kids, and I need to go forward. So the law describes a mechanism much like red light cameras, as we know, to capture images of vehicles and drivers who unlawfully pass a stopped school bus. And this program would issue automatic, it's totally virtual, and would provide summonses to the registered vehicle owner. Doesn't mean that the owner's in the car, but it's just to the vehicle. So the county adopted a local law at the end of November 2019 to implement the school bus violation monitoring program. Thereafter, in May, the county identified a vendor called,
Bus Patrol America.
Bus Patrol of America, and to help implement this program. The vendor has been identified, and they have signed a memorandum of understanding with the county. Supervisors on all East End towns were briefed on this effort, and at the current time, the county is looking for a MOU from us. I'm saddened to know that the only funds that we would get for implementing this type of program would be 10%. And we do not see the other 90%. It goes to the county, and then it goes to the providers of this program. However, it's important that we safeguard our children. You know, if we save just one life under this program, you know, it should be something that I hope that the board may consider. I'm not sure how our deputy town attorney feels on this. I know that she's been fielding the lawyers. I know that I tasked her to speak with the justices, our two justices, and it was determined that it's gonna be a burden on our already overloaded court system. And that's something that's why we're here. It's something that we have to consider. We need to protect our children. We need to ensure that, you know, we need to be in par with our other towns. Mind you, other towns have not elected to do that, to engage in this program, and some have. So it's up to Riverhead Township to decide. And Anne Marie, I asked you to speak to the two justices. Have you done that?
Yes.
Okay. So presented here today is an issue that we need to address. I think as a board, I'm hoping that the board supports me. And if it doesn't, it's fine. We will take a vote. But this is something that we should move forward with, in my opinion.
So the supervisor's correct. During the 2019-2020 legislative session, the Senate and Assembly approved the bill. Later on in the year, before the end of 2019, the governor signed it into law. the county, after it did their, issued their RFP and entered into an MOU with Bus Patrol of America, like the supervisor said, reached out to the towns. I can share with all members of the town board, those assigned on behalf of the town, including myself, we struggled with a lot of different aspects, not simply with the MOU, but with the law. And it's unfortunate that many of the laws that impact municipalities or villages really don't consider the financial burden to the towns, and instead tend to favor the county. It's unfortunate. You know, and to my knowledge, you know, when this law was implemented, to my knowledge, you know, it wasn't alerted to the municipalities or the villages, so perhaps we would have had a stronger voice early on. That said, and I'll just highlight some of the concerns that I've had. One is, pursuant to the law, the breakdown or the share of the fines that we collect, 45% goes to the vendor, Bus Patrol of America. Thereafter, the division is 90% to the county, 10% to the town. I can anticipate, because Councilman Hubbard knows from being a police officer, he's going to ask me, well, what are the fees, Anne Marie? A first-time fee is $250. Second time is, I believe, $300, and then I should really look at my notes. $300 and then $350. So when you talk about the breakdown, and if we just use simple math, let's say the fine was $100. $45 would go to the vendor, and the county would get 90%, and the town of the 55, and the town would get 10, which is $5.50. You know, so it's clearly not geared and will never be a money generator for the town. But the paramount principle is, in fact, the safety of the children. And there's a large component of the program, and proceeds are designated to actually educating the public on the rules regarding passing the school bus and why those rules are in place. So that clearly is a benefit townwide for everyone. My other concerns were, you know, in speaking to the justices, we all know that the justices' calendars are very full. And they work tirelessly and diligently. This will put an added burden on them in time, in learning and getting educated, because we all know when you're utilizing photographic evidence for a prosecution, those records have to be safeguarded. Certain images, you know, people don't realize when the camera takes a photograph, Councilman Bayrod could be walking down the street at that time. We have to remove his image. So there's that aspect. There's safeguarding those records, almost akin to HIPAA. And we have to train staff, and you can't just train one person. You have to have a backup. We all know that. If somebody's out, you have to have a backup. But what is provided in the MOU is that, and if I'm jumping around, I apologize, it's a lot of information. But what Bus Patrol America would provide is, they would actually install the cameras into the buses. They would actually integrate a operating system onto our current hardware or software that we have. They'll do the training, they'll provide support services, which is basically 24 hours a day, every day. They'll do maintenance and repair. They'll actually do the ticketing, citation, and processing. They'll be responsible for printing and posting and mailing of the citations. They'll generate the evidence package and work with our court support system. They'll actually assist and provide court testimony if required, and payment processing, which may include even paying in installments. And finally, as I stated, a public awareness campaign and marketing administration and support.
So, I just have one quick question.
Sure.
What is the scope of these units? Will it be every single bus will have a camera? Will it be random buses? Will the buses that have the camera have notifications on there saying that this is equipped with this technology?
So the school district, what's interesting in the law, because one of the legal issues I was struggling with was whether or not it was possible for the town on its own
Right.
to do the
Exactly.
program and eliminate the 90% to
Yeah,
the
'cause it's
county.
a money grab for the county.
Councilman Hubbard, it's in the law, actually. So what's provided in the law, and, I shared it with all of you, it's pretty voluminous when you go through it. But what it provides is, once the county enters into a agreement with the school district, the town cannot then attempt to move forward its own program. So we either let me back up and make it clear to the town board. Our school district has expressed keen interest and entered into an agreement with the county. Our school district has followed up several times, recommitting itself and their desire to implement this program. In answer to Councilman Bayrod's question, that's up to the school district.
Okay.
That's completely up to the school
But I meant
district.
from a legal standpoint, does the bus actually have to have notification that that technology is on that bus?
No,
Okay.
not according to the laws and the way they were written.
Well, like with the red light cameras, it's
Right.
always posted at an intersection that
Right.
they are red light camera intersections.
Right. And I'll just share with you, this is kind of what the device looks like. That's.
Can we make that available to put on the website since we're discussing?
Sure,
this issue
it's
today?
available on, Bus Patrol America,
Okay,
on their website. Anybody can go on there and take a look.
okay, so we can put up the link if that's what she's giving out.
I've seen it already, thank you.
Yes.
So yesterday, because I am very much concerned, I've expressed to the county numerous times, and obviously they must be aware, that the town of Riverhead is at a bare bones budget. And because of that, we have perhaps not replaced positions. We've perhaps needed positions but have not filled them yet. We talk sometimes about code enforcement. We haven't done that because of the budget. So I expressed to the county, this is a large lift for the town of Riverhead in that we know it's going to impact our current workforce. And, I was informed, because I needed to solidify it, that if we were to hire a part-time person to assist in this endeavor, could we be reimbursed under the program? Because the program provides administrative costs that the town incurs will be reimbursed quarterly. And they said, yes. As a matter of fact, Amory, in our discussions and roundtables with the other towns, that's pretty much what all of them are going to do. They're gonna bring on a part-timer to assist in the workload, but we still will have to train other staff members as backup. So it is possible we could do that. They'll come, Bus Patrol America will come, they'll take a look at our computer system. If we need to upgrade our software or we need programming, they'll pay for that. So I know, you know, the judges are extremely concerned about staffing and the impact it has on current personnel. They are. So, you know, it's a difficult issue from that perspective, perhaps for the town board. I will tell you, under the law, if we opt in, we can later opt out if you so choose. In other words, doesn't need to be a commitment into infinity, but, you know, you could enter into the MOU, do it for a year, take a look at the reports, the statistics, the benefits.
Well, my other hope is kind of that once it is announced that this program will be rolled out widespread, that people will think twice about committing this egregious, you know, offense. So, you know, maybe that's really the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, is there any way of putting a dollar amount on what this really would cost the town?
Very difficult, and in working with the two justices, it's difficult to say because it's so new. This program is so new. You know, the red light cameras have been in existence. Most of the municipalities have not adopted the red light camera. The county has, and they have it in place. So for us as municipalities, and the concern was really just that, the unknown costs. And I kept stressing that in all my conversations with the county and the company. And I think if we're very careful, and that's gonna require work too, because I'm gonna need Justice Court to really document the time and the expense, so we could, quote, bill it out as reimbursable, demanded reimbursable expense, and receive it back quarterly. And I'll also confirm for you, one of my concerns was with respect to the administrative expense, we should anticipate that our revenues, like I said, this is not a revenue generator for the town, and my concern was, are we limited based upon the revenues we collect? And the county confirmed for me, no, we're not.
Oh,
Can I just ask, you know, generally security concerns, certain things fall within the school budget. At what point would the expense of these cameras, you know, how does it not become part of the school transportation line item within the school budget program as opposed to a town item? So at what point does it leave the school and become, you know, a cost factor for the town?
The law, the way it's written, it is not an expense upon the school district. It is an expense for the implementation upon the town.
Bus of America is funding the actual infrastructure, and they're totally responsible for it.
Right.
It has nothing to do, and this should not impound in any way, form or fashion on the school district. I
Right.
do know that they are very, very supportive of this. The school district did sign on with the county on it. And Frank, I just wanna circle back to your previous question, and I see your concern, but I do have an explanation for that. When you said that, well, is there gonna be something indicating that this program is on this bus to make people aware? Let's compare it to the red light. It does have a sign, and as Tim said, right? And then if you go through it, then you receive the penalties, which will be a summons in the mail. But once that indicator is shown by putting out the sign, you have to stop.
Yeah, no,
It's
I
very
agree.
similar to
Yeah.
saying, if you go through this with the red light camera, right, then you're gonna get the summons. So once that stop arm is put out, that's their indicator, you're not supposed to. So that's why they don't have to have any signage.
I'm just curious from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
So I just want to share also with the town board, as I said, all the towns, the East End towns struggled with this a little bit. I mean, I shouldn't speak for them, but obviously everybody is a proponent of protecting our children. Everyone is. But it was the legal aspects of the agreement, the reimbursables, the law itself. I'll share with you and I put in communication to the town board, if we don't enter into this MOU, the program cannot be implemented in the town of Riverhead because we have sole jurisdiction to prosecute these in our justice court. The county doesn't have concurrent jurisdiction to prosecute it in the county parking violations bureau. I wanted to share with you, so the other East End towns, East Hampton signed on by resolution of their town board on December 3rd. The Village of West Hampton signed on December 3rd as well. And Southampton signed on by resolution adopted on November 10th of 2020. To my knowledge, and I have reached out, as Bob assisted me as well, to the town attorney in Southold. To the best of my knowledge, they have not signed on yet.
Anne Marie, you mentioned that once the school district signs on with it, we can't implement it ourselves as a town program.
Once they signed on with the county.
Right.
They did already.
They did. Is there a time period? I mean, they can sign on with it, but if we don't agree to it, it's not gonna happen, correct?
The law actually goes further. What it states is, once a county has implemented the demonstration program, which they did, it's not necessarily even tethered to the school districts. It's that the county has cast the net out.
Right. Okay, so they've
Yeah.
really made this a money grab. They really have.
Correct. You
To
know,
alleviate the towns and villages out of it.
I
That's a
have a-
shame, because they're playing with the safety of kids. And that's a shame that the state lawmakers allowed this to happen.
well, yeah, I mean, the 90-10 is,
Yeah, the 10 doesn't cut it.
Right.
You know, but
So-
we as a board now have to say, okay, you know, do we put that in front of the safety of the kids? Of course not. I don't think any one of us would do that. But, you know,
Yeah.
it's just typical, it's almost like another
Right.
unfunded state mandate as far as I can see, so.
So a couple of things on this. First, I want to thank Anne Marie for your careful research and clear explanation to us of all facets of this. I'm also appreciative that you advocated for us on the county level. And I'm gonna say that because of my many years in the school district, I heard so many stories, really scary stories from bus drivers. It's really shocking how many people continue to go around when the bus has their stop thing up, and how many dangerous situations there've been, and just so many near misses. So I mean, with that said, I think we really have no choice here. We have no choice but to work with the school district and protect our children. So, you know, I appreciate how
Right.
much you explained it all to us, and
Right.
we shall see what happens in the future, but, if we end up being able to, you know, get money for it, but in the meantime, we really have no choice.
Have any of the other East End towns, because you said they did sign on, I know you're struggling with determining the cost, have any of them shared any of their costs?
no,
Not
I mean,
yet.
it's so brand new that I think until, you know, the vendor comes in, sits down, and staffing wise, we can evaluate it, we won't know the costs. You know, we won't know the intensity of the work that is required in order to implement this of our staff until they actually come in, lay it out. We ascertain what we're responsible for versus what they're responsible for. You know, but I would recommend that the town board, you know, immediately consider a part-time staffer, because the county did share with me that that's the direction the other towns are going in. Better to put it in place sooner rather than later, because if you're gonna implement this program, you all do know, the Justice Court will need this help.
The Justice Court are overwhelmed, so this would be a part-time staffer in the Justice Court.
Right. And then they're gonna have to, you know, assign backup to learn the system, but,
They don't even know where we'd put a part-time staffer to.
Right.
yeah,
Well, maybe we can have them here, you know, 'cause it's all virtual, we can
It's
figure
the
it out.
Right.
Space,
Yeah.
people should really know the space issues at the Justice Court, it's crazy.
well, Councilman Hubbard has been advocating that for quite some time, so I think everybody, you know,
Yes,
and I think, you know, the supervisor and all the town board members are keenly aware, and a solution has to come, you know,
yes,
have to have a solution.
We've got a couple
Yes.
irons in the fire, right?
Good.
yep.
That's-
He's got the lead, and he's, been making progress, I understand, hopefully, I'm sure he is. And, I just wanna circle back, concerning the part-timer. I have seen many PowerPoints in this regard. I've had many conversations with, our colleagues here out in the East End, and not everyone supported it simply because of the cost involved. We pretty much got the bad end of the deal. It was implemented at a county level, the school district rightfully so went on board, and they left us with 10%. And we have to complete all the administrative process. We were briefed by the company, and we've had some very aggressive conversations concerning the cost with the county, and they would not, concede. Now, we even asked for 25%, that they get, 75% goes, out, and we, so again, I'm asking the board to, to support this effort. I have one concern, is the, part-time employee. We were told verbally, that they may absorb the cost of a part-time employee, but I need you to lock and load it.
Yep.
Make sure that that is locked in place with this, MOU that we create forward. We don't wanna go into this process and hire an employee, get 10%, and then have to use, resources from the courts. It'll be a total disaster, but we can't afford to lose not even one child here in Riverhead. And I support the school district in this regard.
So if any town board member, you know, the easiest way, because Councilman Hubbard asked some very pointed questions which are in the law, and if any of you want me to share this markup version where it talks about in the law, the breakdown of the fees, the jurisdiction issue, once the county implements the demonstration program, the town steps back and cannot move forward on its own. I'll gladly share that with you. But, so, I'll wait, should I await, town board notification if I should prepare a resolution to authorize the MOU?
I'm fine,
I'm good
absolutely.
with it.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
We're all-
children's
I'm-
safety first. yes.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yep.
just with my comments about complaints, you know how I feel, but absolutely, you
Right.
can't put it in front of the safety of the children.
There's really no choice for us.
Okay, great.
Well, I wanna thank the board, this has been a long road, this has been ongoing for the last 3 months. And Anne Marie, thank you, I know it was a lot of research and a lot of phone calls, and thank you for supporting this effort. Okay, thank you, everyone, this concludes our discussion items for today. In a moment, I'll ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss 2 items. Matters surrounding the change of status of 2 employees with Mancini, matters surrounding a pending internal investigation with Hegemiller. Can I have a first and a second to go into executive session, please?
Motion.
Second,
Okay, we're going into executive session, thank you, everybody approves, obviously, and it's so moved, and again, Happy New Year to everyone.